Hello, everyone, and happy April. I'm sure you've all heard that wonderful cliche, April showers bring May flowers, but those showers can also bring floods. So thankfully, we have Kim Oztuna, our personal lines director, sitting down with us today to explain what flood insurance is, what's
Yep.
it cover, why you might need it. So thanks, Kim.
Thank you for having me. And it is a great month to talk about flood insurance because not only does it bring our May flowers, it'll bring a bunch of unwanted water. So hopefully you guys are
Yes,
going to learn something through our little get together to make you think about the importance of this coverage.
absolutely. All right, here we go. So a basic start here. What is flood insurance?
Yep. So flood insurance is a policy you can purchase. It'll protect you against any damage caused to your structure, your personal belongings as a result of floodwaters. Flood insurance is not a mandated insurance policy unless you're in a flood zone. So you're going to run across a lot of people who do not have flood insurance. But floods can occur basically anywhere.
And that brings me to my next question of who can purchase it?
Yep.
So Burke says
So
anyone, so.
anybody. So a lot of people think that you have to own a home in order to have flood insurance, but you can also rent. The flood insurance policies have dwelling coverage on them as well as personal property. So for those people that rent an apartment or a home or a townhouse can also buy flood insurance. They would just get the personal belongings coverage and not the dwelling coverage. So anybody is eligible to buy flood insurance.
Awesome. Good to know. All right. So as with any policy, it covers some stuff and it doesn't cover some stuff. So let's start with what it does cover.
Yep. So, majority of the need for flood insurance obviously is going to be for your structure damage. So that'll be for your dwelling itself. And then your personal items that are on the inside, your furniture, your belongings, your appliances, things of that nature. There's also 10% of your coverage limit that will cover detached structures on your property. And this could be something like a detached garage or a storage shed or a gazebo, anything that's not the main dwelling itself. You will have some coverage for that, but it will be limited to 10% of what your dwelling coverage happens to be.
It's great to note. All right. Now, what does it not cover?
So the biggest thing with flood insurance that's not covered is anything basement related. So basements are excluded from a flood insurance policy. And when you think of a basement, you're going to think of anything that's below ground level. So there is no coverage for basements. So a lot of times we would recommend that, you don't put your high value antique furniture in your basement area. Just in case there is a flood loss, you're not going to be covered for that. They will cover things that will service your home that are in the basement, things like your furnace, your HVAC, washer, dryers, freezers, things like that. But as far as personal belongings, drywall, flooring, they will be excluded from the flood policy.
Okay. And can you really quick touch on what we would define temporary housing as?
So temporary housing is anytime you have to relocate because you cannot live in your primary residence as a result of a covered loss. Insurance companies will put you up in temporary housing. And I'm sorry, I overlooked that. That
All
is
good.
not a covered part either. So you would have to foot the bill for your temporary rent at another location or living in a temporary apartment or hotel or a family member. So temporary housing is just where you need to reside while the damage to your home is being fixed.
Awesome. Thanks. That makes great sense. So stinks got to pay for that, but it's really great that your policy covers the HVAC, the furnace, all those big ones, because those could be a
Especially the
doozy.
dwelling. Mm-hmm.
Yes, those are a doozy. All right. So, is there a waiting period?
There is. They put the waiting period out there so that people don't call the day before a tropical storm is supposed to hit their area. There is a 30-day waiting period in order to have your flood policy effective. The only exclusion to that is that if you are closing on a new property and you are in need of flood insurance prior to that closing. And that'll usually be the properties that are located in a flood zone, that along with the hazard insurance, you will need to get a flood insurance policy in order for the mortgage company to close and offer you that loan payment. But for majority of the people, there is a 30-day waiting period in order for your policy to take effect.
All right. Timing is everything. Okay. So their property policy does not cover flood losses. I think we've touched on this, but if you wouldn't mind.
Yep.
Giving us a
So
review.
basically, any water loss that occurs on the outside of your dwelling is going to fall more under the flood. The home insurance is geared towards coverage towards, for the inside of your home. So the water damage types of losses like your home policy would cover would be busted pipes, water sewage backup if you have that endorsement on your policy. Those are all isolated to the internal part of your home. The external would be flood. So any surface waters in your on your property that's now coming into your home would be covered under the flood policy, which is a separate policy in itself. Generally, any kind of natural disasters carry their own insurance. There are a few of those that you can add as an endorsement to your home policy, things like volcano and earthquake, but flood, unfortunately, has always been a separate policy in itself.
Got it. Mischief makes a good little point here. What about cost? I know there's certain minimums that usually go with types of policies. Would you mind giving us insight?
Yeah, and it's not that expensive if you're not in a flood zone. Average premium nowadays is about $700 for the year. And that would be those that are not in a designated flood zone. If they are in a flood zone, of course, you're going to see those premiums get a little bit higher. They could run 3 to 4 times the cost. And then, of course, it depends on the amount of coverage that you need. The standard flood policy comes with $250,000 of dwelling coverage and $100,000 of personal property coverage. But if you need excess coverage, you can do that. Of course, that'll cost more. But on the standard side, non-flood zones, about $700 for the year.
It's a lot less than I was expecting. Flood sounds so scary, but it's not that scary of a price. Okay, so is there anything that I could do, or you guys, policyholders, can do to help mitigate flood damage?
Yep. So a few things that you should keep in mind on a seasonal is to always make sure your gutters are free of debris. Obviously, rainwater, the gutters are designed for the waters to flow down the gutters into off your premises, and if they are filled with debris or leaves, then that's just going to overflow right there at your front door. So make it a habit, seasonally to check your gutters, clean your downspouts. If you have any drainage points outside your home, I know like one of our side doors has one, make sure that's free and clear of any kind of debris. Don't put your antiques on that bottom floor, like we had said earlier. Put any valuables or irreplaceable items on a higher floor inside your home to at least have some kind of coverage if something does happen. You can install some flood vents in the foundation if you can, therefore floodwater will just flow right on through. Of course, you can waterproof your basement. You can install a sump pump. They recommend a battery operated one for backup. So there are multi-levels of things that you can do to help eliminate or mitigate flood damage. And the free one is obviously cleaning your gutters and your downspouts. It's going to make a huge impact, and it's not going to cost you any money. Cost you 5 minutes, 10 minutes on top of a ladder.
So long as you're not
So,
afraid of heights, you're good to go.
yes, yes, absolutely. But
Awesome.
just put that as your to do every season, and you should be good with that part.
Awesome. Goes right along with our spring cleaning video from last month. So
Yep.
great reminder. So, all right, as we wrap up here, again, we want to thank Kim for her time and her, most importantly, her expertise and her knowledge on flood insurance. And we hope that you never ever have to experience the effects of floods. Water out of its container is just never a good idea. But hopefully as you go through this video and learn from Kim, it can help reassure you, that we've got you covered. There are ways to help prevent floods, and even if they do occur, there's some coverage options that can help you guys out. So just
Yep.
as a reminder, give us a call. Your Noble Knights are here. Kim, again, you hear how much of an expert
Yeah.
she is.
Yeah, like I said, I'm glad you're doing this one. Flood coverage being not a mandated coverage is one that a lot of people don't think of. And from the agency side, that also falls on the wayside as well. You don't have to be in Florida. You don't have to be next to the ocean to worry about flood insurance. If you live at the bottom of a hill, I mean, we know how gravity works when rainwaters come in and you're at the bottom of your street. Where do you think that water is going to pool? It's going to pool in your yard. So having an elevated house, if you have some elevation, it does help out some, but flood is everywhere. We have rainwaters everywhere.
Yes.
So everybody is in need of flood insurance, and we'd be happy to help.
Awesome. Well, here's our contact information again. Give us a call, visit us online, and I'd be very remiss if I didn't get through another video without suggesting to check out our brand new client portal. It's got all of our information in there as well. It's a nice handy tool to have, and it's really cute to look on your phone and see our little shield.
And
right
I
there.
had to use that the other day myself.
See?
I had to get my insurance number right away, and to avoid going onto my carrier app, I went straight to my glove box, and there it was.
Perfect.
So
Perfect. This is not a paid advertisement, by the way. I didn't prompt her to say that. So
yes.
Awesome.
Bada bing, it pulled right up. So
awesome. Well, thank you so much again, Kim. We really appreciate you sitting down with us and helping enlighten us with floods. So thanks again.
Thank you. All right. Well, enjoy your day.
Thanks. You too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.